seemingly any issue. But if I said to you, don't you think there's something about that right hind? If you looked at it, you could see that maybe he was stepping a bit short.
The non-surgical way first, and then leave that surgery as a last resort if you have the means to do it.
Being an off-the-track thoroughbred, it is very prevalent in off-the-track thoroughbred.
Welcome everyone to episode 99 of the Sen Nutrition Podcast. You're with your host Bryan today, and I have a very special guest, one of our favourite ambassadors for Sen, and it is Tanja Kraus. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good, and today we have a hot topic to cover, and that's kissing spine and lameness and how are they related. And it's a fascinating insight to give our listeners, as Tanja has a real life example, which we'll get into. But firstly, Tanja, how have you been in this first part of 2023?
Pretty busy, actually, pretty flat out. We start every year with a big 21-day clinic. So we kicked off that on the 2nd of January. And we're there for 3 weeks, obviously, taking students into some really in-depth, everyone camps on site. We're all locked in. So it's all day, every day for 21 days. Wow. And we straight out of that and went into a 5-day clinic, which is another, it's a long clinic. And again, everyone's camping on site. That one's actually catered. So we do all the cooking and everything. And
is there gin?
Okay.
Is there gin?
There's a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's a little taste here and there.
That's fantastic.
And then we went straight into a competition the first weekend in February. And then at the end of that competition, I was feeding my horses in the evening, and my dogs knocked me over, and I broke my collarbone.
Oh.
So, yeah,
so not actually riding a horse.
Not riding a horse. Everyone asked me, they're all like, oh, did you do that with a horse? And I always have to touch wood and say, do you know what? I've never been injured with a horse in all my years of training. I've never been injured. And it's just, and so people think, oh, you're a horse trainer, put one and one together and get a broken collarbone. But no, it was a silly old dog. They'd been locked up all weekend, and they were pretty excited to be out. And they were just fighting with each other, just play fighting, and they just barreled into me, and I obviously just landed wrong.
Oh. And your recovery's going okay?
It needed surgery. It was a pretty severe break. So it did need surgery, but they've gone in and put a plate in there, and it feels pretty good. And I have been back out teaching, and I have ridden a horse a couple of times, which I probably shouldn't have. My little trusty steed, Boogie, she's, I can load her on. I can do everything on her one-handed. I don't saddle her like the other people have to help me put the saddle on, of course. But other than that, she's a dream. So I'm very lucky to have her and be able to ride and teach still while I'm injured.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also, maybe we should say to our listeners that are just joining us in episode 99, Tanja Kraus is one of our Sen ambassadors. And Tanja, if you want to let listeners know kind of in a nutshell what you and Phil do.
So my original business was called Tanja Kraus Horsemanship, and that's still what you'd find me under on all the social handles and everything. And Phil's is Phil Monaghan Hakima Afrino, which is a vaquero or buckaroo way of riding, and together we are Holistic Equine Education. So we took off for 12 months in 2022 and travelled around teaching collaboratively together. Now we're back home and we're back teaching clinics. He teaches clinics, I teach clinics individually, and then we teach clinics together as well. So we really try and take a holistic approach to training and teaching. We'll definitely talk to people and get experts in regards to the whole horse, whether it's the mental, physical or emotional well-being. That's basically what we cover, and that's how we ended up in partnership with you guys at Sen. We really believe in the Sen product and find that the nutrition base is leading, second to none, absolutely second to none, and we wouldn't feed anything else. So our holistic approach to our horses is basically what we help people with.
Yeah, and we can't thank you and Phil enough for your support. And originally how we connected with Tanja and Phil was through the Cowgirls Gathering Off the Track Thoroughbred event. And it came about when I had a conversation with Tanja about feeding horses, nutrition, and guiding her with the whole nutrient profile to help Ginger Coops, the off-the-track thoroughbred, and to cope with his new life post-racing, and that was involving a high-fibre, low-sugar, low-starch diet and understanding that. And he hasn't looked back with his health. But this podcast now surrounds an issue that Tanja has picked up with him, and we're going to go really deep diving into kissing spine and how it kind of relates to lameness, but it's kind of a hidden diagnosis, as Tanja and I have discussed in private before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess where it started was I got Ginger Coops for Race to Ranch, as you say, the competition at Cowgirls Gathering, which was to showcase off-the-track thoroughbreds that had been racing within the previous 6 months. Yep. And we had 100 days. All in all, we had 120 days. We were allowed to start working them on the 1st of June, and we were to present them at Cowgirls Gathering as a ranch horse. So we had to do 4 different areas of competition as it relates to ranch. So we had to do a dry work pattern, an obstacle pattern. We got to make up a freestyle, and we did some cattle work. And so that's what I took on Ginger Coops for. I really loved the idea of showing people that off-the-track thoroughbreds are useful for not only racing and obviously have been highly successful in coming across into the English disciplines of eventing and dressage and show jumping, but us Western people could really enjoy the off-the-track thoroughbreds as well. So that's why I got involved. And so when I took on Ginger Coops, he was fresh out of a racing stable in April. I brought him home and immediately put him onto the recommended dosages and feeding rates that you gave me, Bryan, to get his nutrition or to maintain his nutrition and not get that big fall away that most people get with off-the-track thoroughbreds. I think it's a really common thing, and I know prior to Race to Ranch, if someone got an off-the-track thoroughbred, I would say to them, chuck them in a paddock for 12 months. They need to, we call it come down. They need to come down off all the stuff that they've gone through. They're on really high grain feeding rates. They're kept in boxes. They do get pharmaceutical help at times for different ailments. And that sort of thing. And so I didn't have that time. I didn't have that 12 months to give him. And now my recommendation wouldn't be to do that at all. I think supporting them through the nutritional profile that Sen offers actually helps them convert over without having to really come down. Most of the time when you turn them loose for 12 months, they turn into skeletons. They'll really drop off. They'll really not be able to cope as a horse. I speak to a lot of people with off-the-track thoroughbreds who are like, my horse doesn't even know how to eat grass. Like, you know, they just at the gate waiting for someone to come with food because that's what they're used to. So my recommendation now is obviously to embrace that better nutritional profile. So anyway.
How old was he when you had him?
He is, what is he, a 2016? So that makes him 6.
Yeah, 6 going on 7, yeah.
So, and we did Cowgirls in 2021, so he was rising 5.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he was rising 5 in 2021. So the other thing that comes along with thoroughbreds is typically their feet. And so something that we did was we pulled the race plates off him, and Phil, my partner, is barefoot trimmer. And so he looks really at the structure and the profile of the hoof as it relates to riding. And so what we really tried to do, again, to knowing that I had to ride the horse in 4 months, we tried to do amendments to the balance of the foot in a way that would still keep him sound but get him on the track to having, better balanced feet for the purpose of being a ranch horse and moving in a different way to what racehorses need to move. So he did have some, I can't say lameness issues. He wasn't lame, but he was off when we were training him for Race to Ranch. So what we ended up doing was putting shoes on him with wedges in for the back feet to support that negative palmar angle that he was in, we put wedges in there to help support the hoof and hopefully get it to start growing in a more positive way. Because for me, taking him on, I wasn't only aiming for to get him to the competition, but I was very conscious of what was going to happen post-competition. Was I going to keep him? Was I going to sell him? In any way, I wanted to make sure that I was making a long-term investment in the horse, not just a short-term, okay, well, let's get him sound, let's get him out there on the competition, and then who cares what happens after that. Because obviously the competition, the whole thing about it was these thoroughbreds, they're not to just be thrown away. They can be purposeful and used beyond their racing career. So he did have that little niggling, like I say, it wasn't a lameness, but it was like an offness. And so that coming in from nutrition and coming in from balancing feet and then coming in from the work that I did, we managed to not only keep him sound, but keep him in a really great body. All the girls up at Race to Ranch were like, man, if we were here for condition and muscular development, Ginger Coops is by far, at the top of that pinnacle. He looked amazing. He was in top form when he went to that competition. He was, had laid down really good muscle. He was balanced and he was sound. Post Cowgirls Gathering, I literally brought him straight home. We pulled the shoes off and we put him straight into the paddock and said, okay, now he can have 12 months off, because that was October 2021 and we knew in 2022 that we were going to hit the road. And being only a 5-year-old who hadn't had time away from, he had time away from racing, but it was due to injury, hadn't had time away from all that training and everything, I put him out to spell. And he was still maintained on Sen, but we dropped everything right back off. We actually converted him. I feed the CF50 and with a whole bunch of supplements, and the lady where I was adjusting him for spelling was feeding the Sen grain free. That's it. So she was maintaining him on the Sen grain free, and we just left him there for a full 12 months. So fast forward, for the whole of 2022, all we were doing was going up there and still doing his feet. But we were on the road, so there was longer time in between doing his feet than we would have liked. And then in December 2022, we went and picked him up in preparation to bring him back into work, to take him to the 21-day clinic and all of those things. So immediately when we brought him back in, again, we did the feet, converted him over to his original feeding program, which was the CF50, the Sen Gold, the Ultra Protect, the Extra Balance, the oil and electrolytes where required. Yep. And we just restarted. I just restarted, but with a view that I didn't have a competition in 4 months. So I just started him on the feed. I wasn't really doing much work with him, and I was slowly building him up to go to the 21-day clinic, which we did. And about 2 weeks into the 21, he had already presented with the original off, quote unquote, the offness of the right hind leg, which wasn't a lameness, but it was definitely something that I could see. And if I had pointed it out to you, you would be able to see. So when he was on a lunge, he could walk, trot and canter without seemingly any issue. But if I said to you, don't you think there's something about that right hind? If you looked at it, you could see that maybe he was stepping a bit short. Maybe there was something going on, but it wasn't like a limping step. So I kept him going for 2 weeks, but in the back of my mind, I was sort of like, I need to lay down enough muscle to make sure that it's not just something that needs stretching and strengthening. But after 2 weeks, I decided I feel like he's had enough time to stretch and strengthen. I should be seeing some kind of improvement here. And so off we went to the vet, and I was taking him for x-rays of the hocks and the stifle area in the right hind. And she did do that at my instruction and got me to do a trot out with him. And she said, I'd like to x-ray him for kissing spine. For 2 reasons. One, because it can present the way that it was presenting, which was with an off niggle in one of the hind legs. And 2, because being an off-the-track thoroughbred, it is very prevalent in off-the-track thoroughbreds in terms of their entire, management system and the way that they're started and then ridden and all of that stuff. It can lend them. It is very common in OTT. So she wanted to do that, and sure enough, we found kissing spine on the X-rays.
Was it on your radar when you saw the lameness, or
it not really? Yes, because he's an off-the-track thoroughbred, but not specifically because of the lameness. I didn't see the offness and go, that's probably kissing spine, because obviously, generally when it comes to lameness, you're probably thinking more hoof, hock, stifle. You think there's something in the leg. When it presents, especially as a unilateral, one-sided problem, I didn't go straight to the spine. I certainly went to, there must be, and, I thought it was the feet. That's why we gave him more time. We gave him a full month between coming in December, and I don't think we took him until to the vet. Phil did his feet on like the 15th of December, and he did them again at the beginning of January, and then mid-January is when we took him to the vet. So I gave him a full month of feet work as well to make sure that it wasn't just coming from the rebalancing, like the angles changing on his feet, which obviously can stretch tendons, ligaments, muscles, hamstrings, all that sort of stuff. So, it was more that element that I was considering as opposed to it actually being kissing spine.
Yeah, well, that's pretty, like you ticked all the boxes, and then obviously, confirmed it with those x-rays. And for our listeners that are unaware of what kissing spine or the actual term is, it's about the spinous processes. So these are long, thin, bony projections that are in the vertebrae, and when they crowd up, they gently touch each other. So the term kissing is when they're kind of touching, and they can actually get really, in severe cases, overlap, and this is causing that severe limit to performance and that lameness showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they can do long term is the spinous processes can rub on each other and actually start to rub away bone, basically. So
that would be so painful. Yeah, absolutely. So it's it's that whole pinching it's the touching of the spinous processes and then the pinching of all the network of nerves and everything around those spinous processes that cause the pain. Yeah, and as you said, it's prevalent in the off-the-track thoroughbreds, and we work with a lot of thoroughbred racehorse trainers and the whole industry as a whole, and including off-the-track thoroughbred owners. And it's kind of a fine line that everyone in that industry has to kind of adhere to. So the racing industry, they do start these horses at a younger age, and recognizing the structure of that younger horse and the way they're training them, because the research that has come out is starting a horse younger has benefits of less breakdowns later in life, but due to that concussion on the bone structure and everything, but then it is making them susceptible to this issue in the back if they're not trained properly or they're not managed right in their training. Yeah,
I think it's really important to touch on that. It's the age-old conflict, right? Like there is two schools of thought on, and if you look at one extreme to the other, you've got one extreme end of the scale where people will say, you shouldn't start a horse until it's 5 or 6 or 7 or even, until all those growth plates are finished.
Yep.
You shouldn't do any work with the horse at all. And then on the other end of the scale, you'll see, and absolutely there is research out there where horses have been started at a young age and they see benefits of that. I think it's really important for the general horse public to understand that there's a balance in the middle there somewhere where it's kind of like what we have to understand is the level of work and the intensity of the work. So a lot of what happens with, you take that research and say, it's really good to start them at a young age, there's benefit, and then you put them into a futurity program where you're trying to ride them as 2-year-olds and ride them as 3-year-olds in a high performance industry. And that's not just racing. there's a lot of futurities around the world, whether it be for reining, dressage or whatever. There's a lot of futurities, and often they have the big money. And that research isn't promoting inserting a young horse into a high-level performance training program. So I think we have to be really understanding that it's about, you know, you wouldn't keep a child inside in bed until it's 12 or 13 and then pull it out and put it into gymnastics or weights, because absolutely you're going to cause injury to that, but you're also not going to take your 3-year-old toddler and put it into a high-performance weight training program where you're asking them to lift their body weight or beyond or whatever. So it's about that toddler, aka that horse, having good range of motion, good functional movement, small bouts of weight bearing, but not under extreme stresses or under extreme conditions. So I think that that's something that really needs to be clarified and understood surrounding, you know, working young horses. And the other part of that coin is understanding, you know, your expertise is the nutritional side of things, understanding that maybe some of the feeding profiles that are available to us on the market aren't necessarily mimicking what nature intended and what the horse is meant to actually process. And so we take these young horses and we want them big and fat and shiny, and they look big and fat and shiny, so they look like they can carry the weight of a rider and they look like they're invincible, but really they're not getting the nutrient profile to strengthen the bones and have good flexibility in tendons, ligaments, and all of the nutrition, which, you know, I don't understand. That's why I have you. So we have to understand the nutritional profile that we should be giving these younger horses in terms of their professional or performance career. And then we also need to understand that our domestic horses are limited in what they're allowed, or what they have available to them in terms of what nature intended. So, you know, when they put trackers on brumbies, for example, brumbies move, you know, 15 to 20 kilometres every single day to get food and water, and that's not under duress. That's what they're made for. So when you take a domestic horse and you put it in a little flat, square, half an acre paddock with beautiful manicured lawns, and they're not going up and down hill, and they're not walking on sand and gravel and grass and rock and all of those things, and they're not, you know, moving, just simply moving 20 kilometres a day, we're really restricting how they're going to convert that nutrition into laying down good bone, good tendons, good ligaments, and a strong body that we can then, you know, take to that high performance level for many, many years. You know, we're really lucky. I've got, you know, Boogie's 15, 16. I'm only just starting to consider her replacement now, but her replacement, she'll go on the road with her replacement to teach it good, you know, good road manners or good road citizenship. So Boogie will be on the road until she's 18, 19. You know, Phil rides George. He's a 2003. So he turns 20 this year.
Wow.
And still at the top of his game, you know, whereas we're seeing a lot of horses break down at 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's just not, you know, that's definitely due to a lack of our care or our ability to understand what they actually need and what's the best for them.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Tanya. You took the words out of my mouth in terms of with that whole child analogy in when you should put them into a higher performance arena and the pressures on that structural or skeletal health. So it all starts from that very young age. You have to have the right environment, particularly, as you said, a horse in the wild is roaming. The concussion on the bones is actually building better bone health in that sense. And having the proper nutrition in a domestic setting to support bone growth, plus that really nice environment, that is where you're going to get your bone structure strength. And that includes all through that back structure in that spine. The other alarming thing with experience in this industry, not only in the thoroughbred industry, but many performance industries, these yearlings in particular are being exposed to medications that are trying to treat symptoms from the shortfalls of management and nutrition. So I'm leaning here to the conditions of ulcers, So what we do know, and it's only come about in the last 2 years, is the world experts have rewritten what the causes of ulcers are. And in the top part of the stomach, you have ulcers that are related to nutrition, and the bottom part is more the stress, anxiety, and the environment they live in. So getting these two things right as a younger horse is very important, and not leaning on the medications, because long-term, and this has come out too, long-term omeprazole use, or the ulcer medication use, you have less calcium absorption over time, and a horse requires calcium for many body processes, and to get that level back to normal, if they're not getting it through the diet, they'll pull it from their bones. So put 2 and 2 together there. Does that make the off-the-track thoroughbred more susceptible to kissing spine because of their younger age, environment, and the way they'll manage then, unfortunately? And the links are getting stronger and stronger. So what we're trying to do is limit those medications to short-term use. So not more than 2 weeks, definitely not longer than 4 weeks, but get the foundations and the management right to help lower the risk of these certain conditions that they're treating. So I think, Tanja, you and Sen are definitely on the right page in terms of a whole holistic view with nutrition, training, and their environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. And it's one of those things that you have, it's one of those things where you have conversations with people, and it's sort of like, oh, but that's the way we've always done it. That's just, it's made it easier and this and that. And it's kind of like, but it's costing you performance and it's costing you money at the top end anyway. Like it's sort of one of those things where if you realise that you were like that the environment that is traditional for, and we're talking about OTTs because we're talking about Ginger Coops. If you're looking at that environment that a racehorse is kept in, stabled, high grain, I think there's research out there that it's such a high, 90% of them have got ulcers. Like that's just and as you say, it's not only accepted, it's a normal part of life for them to just be medicated for that. But surely that's costing you performance. Yep. Surely that the mental health compromise that happens from the horse living in a box, and a horse that's meant to go 20 k's a day and is living in a 4x4, a horse that's not meant to eat high grain, a horse that is meant to be social, etc., etc., etc. All of those things, if you were able to maintain the horse in a more enriched environment that is more akin to what nature made them to be, you're going to extract more performance out of that animal anyway. So really, you're going to get faster racehorses, you're going to win more races. But it's one of those things where, like I say, it's like, oh, well, this is how my dad did it, this is how my granddad did it, this is how his dad did it, etc., etc. And it's just sort of like, well, try something different.
Yeah, we're looking at the facts and the physiology of the horse and then working back from there. But the really good news, and it's kind of a send mission to help off-the-track thoroughbreds by getting the trainers to look after the actual thoroughbreds on the track in a better way. So we have many trainers now that have reached out that used to feed the traditional way, are converting to the Send Feed program, which is a lower sugar, lower starch profile. So they're using less medications. Some of them, they have zero vet bills in terms of those ongoing treatments. They're getting the performance. We're seeing heart rates. We're doing monitoring with the lactate levels, like real sports science in terms of looking at the overall effect of this different nutrient profile in terms of stamina. And there's all these positive benefits of good health in every body system of the horse. So when you do get an off-the-track thoroughbred from a Send feeding trainer, they're going to be in a better state than one that's been on that traditional high grain over grain diet, less forage. So that's kind of a mini mission or research and development in the works at the moment, and it's only getting bigger as it's getting recognised and people getting educated, particularly in the top stables and the top studs around Australia.
That is music to my ears. That is so. It really is. It's about time we got change, and that is what's going to affect change, is people actually doing it, being successful in it, and
Correct.
seeing the value. in doing it. So good on you guys. That's awesome.
No, thank you. We know that every horse has various abilities. We want them to reach their potential. We know, so say a horse does perform amazing on a full grain diet, there's always now the what if it was fed better with the natural way or the feed program of a high fiber that actually goes with their physiology, their body systems would be in a better position. And there's all research coming out now with foals fed the traditional way compared to a high fiber, low sugar, low starch diet. They both grew at the same growth rate. So there was no problems with growing the horse out. They're actually the same size. Each one, you couldn't tell which one was on the high grain diet, which one was on the high fiber diet. But when they did all the tests for acidity and their gastrointestinal digestive tract, the condition of the high fiber foals was way more superior to the ones that were fed the high grain. And we know the digestive tract is 70% of the immune system is located in there. It produces hormones. So there's over 20 hormones that are produced there that actually affect behavior. So if that's in a better state, you can have a better temperament horse as well. So there's so many benefits over that traditional way of feeding.
Absolutely.
So going back to kissing spine, Tanja, we went off on a tangent there, but it all related to that care and management at the start. There's actually not a single factor that can cause it at the moment. Like there's various issues that can make it arise, like obviously that improper conditioning or training under saddle at a very young age. There could be a genetic predisposition that's not proven yet, confirmation issues, but it could be multifactorial. You can't pinpoint it, but you can also like narrow it down to the cause. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors. And one, at the end of the day, you'll never really know. I mean, who knows? He might have had a rollover accident or something like that, and that's caused, a pinch there or whatever. Yeah. It's really about moving forward and figuring out how you're going to manage it basically and try and help him.
Yeah, 100%. And what are your plans for Ginger Coops?
So with kissing spine, there's a couple of options. One is surgery, which is, you talk surgery in horses, you want to say it's expensive, but really it's all relevant. It's all in context, isn't it? So there is a surgical option. I have preferred to go down a non-surgical route, something that I'm excited about within my own training and my own research and development in regards to the processes I use. When I'm training or teaching any horse or any clinic or anything like that, I'm very conscious of and teach a lot about biomechanics, correct posture, the exercises that we can do to promote longevity, long-term soundness for our ridden horse and things like that. So when I spoke to the vet about it, and I said to her, look, because I had photos on my phone of Ginger Coops at Cowgirls Gathering, which was when he was in his peak condition, because obviously when she saw him in January, he'd just been swelling, and so he was in not great condition, no top line, not muscles anywhere or anything like that. And I said to her, look, I'm really confident in my training program. My training program already considers good posture and good development of the back muscles to support the saddle. So I'm actually really confident that through what I already do with this horse, that I'm going to be able to build muscles around that area, create a positive posture that is going to relieve the kissing spine. You can't change the skeleton. I think that, obviously bones remodel and all that sort of stuff, but you can't change what's already occurred with the skeleton. But what you can do, and this goes for humans as well, or dogs or cats or whatever, it goes for any body system, is that what you can do is actually strengthen the area around the weakened area. So if you consider the kissing spine as being the weakness, and it's weaker when he doesn't carry himself, I'm using my hands and you can't see me, but it's weaker when he carries himself in a little bit more of a hollow back. So a horse that's not in work an unfit horse or a horse that is not being ridden correctly will typically adopt more of a hollow backed posture, which makes the kissing spine worse.
Yeah, wow.
So the training that I do is to encourage a lifted back posture, which will alleviate the pressure and the spinous processes, hopefully drawing them away from each other and building the muscle on either side. So what we've decided to do, the vet was really excited about that herself because she sees a lot of kissing spine, and she would like to be able to say to people that I've used a process to, support the area. And, you can't, like I say, you can't eliminate it altogether, but if I can get him to a functional place of posture where he's no longer in pain and he can be ridden, I'm hoping to be able to ride him, then we're going to talk more about developing that to make it available to the general public so they can hopefully go down a non-surgical route as well with these horses. Obviously, surgery isn't an option for a lot of people. They can't afford it. It can be a higher risk because even once you've done the surgery, you need to do exercises and things like that to maintain what the surgical process has done. Otherwise, the horse will just slip back into having kissing spine. So what we've done is we've given him some steroid injections in that area, and I've embarked on a training program. We're going to take him back in 12 months and have him re-x-rayed, and hopefully there's going to be significant improvement in, his posture and his kissing spine in 12 months, and I'll be able to share that with you all. So I'm super excited about that. Obviously, I'd rather that he didn't have to suffer with kissing spine or he didn't have it, but he does. That's where we're at. So hopefully if I can do the work and improve it, then his legacy will be able to be shared with others, and they'll be able to hopefully improve the future of horses with this diagnosis.
Yeah, that's a fantastic plan, Tanja. It's way less invasive than surgery, and I think I totally agree with you. If you can do it the non-surgical way first and then leave that surgery as a last resort if you have the means to do it, it's kind of mirrors what we're trying to do. If you feed the natural way first and then you've ticked all that nutrition box and you further need that help from medication or surgery, then that's where you go. But I think this is going to be a really good process to review when in 6 months down the track, or when we next talk to you, because what we'll do with Ginger Coops diet is just make sure we have that adequate protein levels to support that muscle growth, because that's going to be really important to build that muscle to help the spine be corrected in that way that Tanja will be embarking on the training. And that could be a really good base for anyone else that has that condition with their horse.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Yeah, I think Ginger Coops is in really good hands with Tanja, as he's going to be looked after and given every chance to get through this condition and hopefully be able to be ridden again.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And like every horse, they can't be blanketed that it's the end of their career, because there's various degrees of it. Because I think there's even a case, there's actually a top racehorse that's come back after surgery and is winning at the top level, which the trainers do know they have to train that right way and have that right posture or collection to really help support that spine area, as Tanja just touched on before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tanja, it'll be really interesting to probably have you back on as Ginger Coops progresses through that rehab work later in the year and check in, because hopefully we've got a really good positive result. What else do you have planned coming up for the rest of the year?
Well, we've actually got some big projects afoot within holistic equine education and myself personally. So something that I'm super excited about in regards to HEE, or holistic equine education, giving back to the community, is I've actually just today sent out an email launching our what we call community workshops. So I really have been interested in giving back to local community groups, or community groups, not necessarily, they don't have to be local to me, but equine groups of clubs. So whether it's an adult club or it doesn't matter what discipline they do, dressage clubs or whatever. What I've formulated is this idea of these community workshops where I can go to a club and present a workshop on exactly what we've been talking about, maybe something like biomechanics. I've got bones that I take around with me, like horse bones that I take around with me to show people what the spinous processes look like and, explain how they work. I've got demonstrations that I can do with my own horses. It doesn't always have to be around biomechanics. Sometimes it's about collection or ridden work. Sometimes it's problem solving. Sometimes it's liberty. But basically we're offering these community workshops to clubs. So I will cover all the costs. They don't have to pay me for my time or anything like that. If there's a cost of getting me there, then we can work out how they can cover that within the club. But it's basically just trying to share as much of this information that's going to help our horses and humans with horses go forward who maybe don't have the time or the money to come to a full-blown clinic over a weekend. This is a way that I can still reach those people and help them with their horses. I'm super excited about that.
It's a fantastic initiative.
I'm really chuffed to be in a position to be able to offer my time like that. Obviously, this year is my 12th year in business. When you've got a younger business, it's all about trying to get yourself out there and pay the bills and just get from week to week. So I'm really chuffed that we've made it to a spot where we can give back and we can really offer clubs offer people access to this information without them having to, like I say, commit to a 2 or 3 or 10-day clinic or whatever it is. So I'm really excited.
That's fantastic, Tanja. And I understand you have another book coming out.
I do. My book that came out in August, Lessons from Horses Perspectives, was really well received by the equine community, and my plan is to write one a year for the next 7 years. So that was the first one. So it'll be a series of 7, and my plan is to release them every August. Whereas here in Australia, 1st of August is the horse's birthday. So my plan's to release them. So I'm busily working on the next volume of Lessons from Horses. Just share stories, real-time stories from my experience of working with horses, working with people, that sort of thing, and sharing how I approach different training situations, different things that come up. Nice insight. And where would people be able to find that first? On my website, which is horsemanshipforperformance.com. You can definitely get your hands on the original book called Perspectives. It's the purple one, and the pre-sales will be open probably within the next couple of months on the next one, which its working title is Training Tips, Observations and Light Bulb Moments, but I haven't set that in stone just yet, but it's a yellow one. Nice. And I think you also are doing a coming back behind the camera on YouTube. I am. That's my other major project this year. Busy. Wow. I know, but I get energized from it. I get really energized from being busy and just giving back to the horse community that has helped me for so many years. I'm really excited about being able to do these things and get the stuff out there. So I'm launching a new show. So some people might remember my 2 previous shows. One was called Monday Night Live, and then we moved to Wednesday. So we changed it to Wednesday Night Live, where I used to launch every Wednesday on Facebook. I'd go live and I'd talk about a training problem or technique that someone had sent in. And we're actually launching this year my new show, which is called Let's Talk Horses. And it won't be live. It'll be pre-filmed, and it's going to have a little bit more it's going to cover a few more different things. So not only are we going to talk some training ideas and principles like the old show, but we're also going to be doing product reviews. I really want to help people get interesting Australian products out in front of people for the equine industry. So I'm looking forward to showcasing and road testing some products. We're going to do rider hacks. You know, it's the social media term, isn't it? Like, you know, all the hacks, your life hacks, rider hacks, this hack, that hack. So people send me hacks and I'm going to try them myself and put them on the show and let you know if they worked or not. We're going to do interviews with other trainers, service providers, all that sort of stuff. And we're going to talk, what was the other thing? Training, rider hacks, interviews, product reviews, and there's one more thing that I'm missing that I can't think of. But anyway, it's a lifestyle show for equine enthusiasts, which I can't wait.
When's the first episode?
I'm hoping I want to do it like today because I'm like that. I've come up with an idea and I'm like, right, let's do it right now. But I am wanting this to be a little bit more higher quality in relation to the audio, in relation to the filming, in relation to the editing with the lives.
Amazing.
I never did editing or anything like that. So this show, I am going to spend that little bit more time just packaging it together so it's a little bit more user-friendly for people to watch and you don't get those little bibs and bobs and ums and ahs and things like that. So I am hoping to launch the first episode within the month. That's my goal.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you'll definitely have to keep tuned into Tanya's social medias for that first episode link. It'll be fantastic. I understand that you might have me on as well.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Might be a nice little insight to how Sen started and for people who don't know our backstory. So it could be...
Yeah.
Could be
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know your whole backstory, and so I'm excited to do that and learn.
Well, Tanya, I think that about wraps that one up. That was a really good conversation, like great catch up with you in terms of your plans for the year, but also a fascinating insight into kissing spine and how that relates to lameness, and particularly in your example with Ginger Coops. And we can't thank you enough for your time, because even if it just helps out one owner to help understand what might be going on with their horse that's not 100% right, just to open their eyes to that, I think it's worthwhile. But do you have any final words you can give our listeners?
My final words would be, if you've got a horse that is intermittently not quite right, quote unquote, get the x-rays. That's, consult with your vet, because I see my recommendation to people all the time. They'll come to clinics and because we hear the word x-rays and we think it's going to be really expensive, which nowadays they're not as expensive as they used to be. They're not as hard to get as they used to be. Like, a lot of vets have portable x-ray machines. They can do them at your house. It's really easy. They hook up the laptop and they just go click and bang, it's on the computer screen straight away.
That's awesome.
So they're not as hard to get as they used to be. They're not as expensive as they used to be, but they are diagnostically solid information. I see so many people go through, I'm going to get the chiropractor and I'm going to get massage and I'm going to do this and I'm going to change this. And by the time you've gone through every single anecdotal treatment, you still end up getting the x-rays anyway, whereas what you can do, you get the x-rays, you get the solid diagnosis, and then you can support exactly what is wrong with that horse.
Yeah, the x-rays are literally black and white.
Exactly.
No, that's fantastic. And I think, actually, it does remind me, like, some of the chiropractor people, it does actually remind me that some of the chiros that I see, their first initial diagnosis of a new patient, they'll look at the x-rays first. So I think...
exactly.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a nice Friday afternoon. You got plans for this weekend, Tanya? Any gin?
Maybe a little bit.
A little bit? A little bit.
You never can discount it. We've actually got a really big event happening locally called Valley Fest, which is the local community, the local organisers, like the local business heads and everything like that, have organised this huge big thing. They've got live music like even our bakery's got live music on, Saturday morning or something like that. Like It's really cool. Whole valley is getting involved. So I'm definitely going to go and check that out.
Sounds like a great community event. So yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, you have a good weekend, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Tanja, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, we'll have another podcast to you really soon. If you do enjoy our podcast, please open up your podcast app, whether Spotify, Apple, or another one that you use. And it really helps if you do leave a review or a rating with the exposure to other people searching the horse podcasts and related topics. And we can be really grateful that these are really well received. So thanks very much, everyone.